So, welcome to the 38th discussion of the Read, Write, Inspire Classics Book Club. So, today we are discussing The Sympathizer by uh, Viet Thanh Nguyen. So, we're going to see a little bit about the author, about the book, and about the author's life, and also some of the excerpts from his interviews where he speaks about himself and his book. We'll also see a very short run through of the Vietnam War and the history behind the war, and just to get a better understanding of, uh, you know, what exactly are we, talking about in the book. We'll see some themes and some quotes. So the author Viet Thanh Nguyen is a South Vietnamese-born American professor and novelist. His debut novel, The Sympathizer, won the 2016 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, and many other accolades. He was awarded a MacArthur Foundation Fellowship and a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2017. He's a regular contributor, op-ed columnist for the New York Times, covering immigration, refugees, politics, culture, and Southeast Asia. I'm so sorry, I'm having a slightly bad throat. I hope my voice is not is clear and audible and understandable. So he was the son of Linda Thanh Nguyen and Joseph Thanh Nguyen, refugees from North Vietnam who had moved south in 1954. Nguyen's mother's real name was Nguyen Thibae. She is a highly influential person in his life. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, Nguyen's family fled to the United States. They left behind Viet's 16-year-old adopted sister, whom he did not see again for nearly 30 years. After being in a few refugee camps, they reached San Jose, California, where his parents opened a Vietnamese grocery store called Saigon Moi, one of the first of its kind in the area. So this is a little bit about his life from with the author's own words. I was born in Vietnam and fled as a refugee in April of 1975 with my family to the United States. And even though I grew up as an American, deeply Americanized, this shadow of the war and of history hung over me. Because I was constantly hearing stories about what had happened to the Vietnamese people from my parents or from the extended Vietnamese community that I was living in. And so I just absorbed that sense of a persistent memory, of persistent trauma, of this feeling that the war was not over and that the country had been lost, and that we still hoped that one day we would take that country back. Continuing with his biodata. So, Viet Thanh Nguyen on Christmas Eve, he's in San Jose, California, they're running a grocery store. And on Christmas Eve, when Nguyen was about 9 years old, his parents survived being shot during a robbery at that store. When he was 16, a gunman broke into the family's house and threatened them. Nguyen's mother ran into the street screaming for help and saved everyone's lives. 7 years after arriving in America, Nguyen's older brother, Tung Tan Nguyen, whom he calls the original refugee success story, entered Harvard University. Tung graduated 4 years later with a BA in philosophy and earned an MD in 1991 from Stanford University. He's a very popular, acclaimed person with a lot of accolades to his name. And as a child, Nguyen often enjoyed reading literature about the Vietnam War, preferably those from the Vietnamese perspectives, which were rather rare at the time in comparison with the overwhelming amount of American narratives. Nguyen finished his studies at the University of California, Berkeley. He graduated in 92 with a Bachelor of Arts in English and Ethnic Studies. At 26, he earned a PhD in English from Berkeley in 1997. He's married with 2 children. In 2023, after Nguyen signed an open letter in the London Review of Books urging an end to violence and destruction in Palestine, a Jewish organization at the 92nd Street Y cancelled a scheduled reading by Nguyen without any explanation. After the cancellation, other authors pulled out of the center's upcoming programming schedule, and at least 2 employees resigned. On Instagram, Nguyen wrote, "I have no regrets about anything I have said or done in regards to Palestine, Israel, or the occupation and war." He has written 2 novels, and the second book is a sequel to The Sympathizer. He's written 3 non-fiction books, many short stories, and 1 children's book. He's won many awards, fellowships, and grants for his writing. So now, talking about The Sympathizer, it won the 2016 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. It's named on more than 30 Best Book of the Year lists and a New York Times Editor's Choice. Just a minute. The New York Times Book Review praised the novel for its place in the broader Vietnam War literature and for its treatment of dualities in a way that compares favorably with masters like Conrad, Green, and Lee Carey. Writing for the Washington Post, Ron Charles called the novel surely a new classic of war fiction, which is startlingly insightful and perilously candid. Nguyen plumbs the loneliness of human life, the costs of fraternity, and the tragic limits of our sympathy. Many critics said the book offered a new perspective on the Vietnam War, one that is in contrast to the one provided by Hollywood filmmakers. So the novel is in an epistolary novel, since the entire thing is in the narrator's written confession to the commandant. Therefore, the point of view must be primarily first person, in keeping with the nature of the narrator's writing. The author is also, the book is filled with irony. So it's filled with characters who are both protagonist and antagonist at different points in the novel. And the narrator's perspective shifts, and we become privy to their motivations, misdeeds, and the positive qualities. There is vivid imagery and beautiful descriptions. There's a constant imagery contrast also between Vietnam and United States. The author vividly describes gleaming white American toilets as compared to Vietnamese outhouses, the moisture in the air in Asia as compared to the relative dryness in America, etc. So another speciality about the book is that Nguyen actually uses this term called metonymy in the naming of his characters. So this is something I didn't know about till I read this book. So metonymy is basically when characters don't have names, but they are called by the roles that they fill. For example, and thereby they stand for the larger concept behind the thing rather than as individuals. So here, for instance, characters include the general, the madam, the congressman, the crapulent major, the author, even the narrator himself. Sometimes he is the comrade, sometimes he is the captain. So, talking about the movies of Hollywood and how they actually are a very important point which the author wanted to bring out in the book. These are the words of the author. So he says, "I remember sitting and watching Platoon in a movie theater. Platoon and Apocalypse Now are the 2 movies which inspired the movie that he talks about in the book called The Hamlet is the name of the movie in the book, which he goes as a script consultant for. So the author says, "I remember sitting and watching Platoon in a movie theater. And when the Vietnamese were shot, people would cheer. I was like, wait, that's weird. Who am I supposed to identify with at this moment?" Apocalypse Now was a movie that was very important to me. I think I saw it when I was 10 or 11 years old, one of the early movies I saw on a VCR, and it totally traumatized me. My voice would shake even 10 years later, describing a scene from the movie where the sailors massacre a sampan full of Vietnamese civilians. On the one hand, it's an incredible work of art. I think I admire that film. On the other hand, it puts me in a very difficult situation as the Vietnamese person who gets killed in the movie. It's much better to be the villain and the anti-hero than to be the extra who gets killed. And that's what essentially is happening in American Vietnam War movies of the 1980s. Yes, they depict a very dark side of the American experience. But that also means that they cast Americans as the central subjects of history. He also says, I did not want to write this book as a way of explaining the humanity of Vietnamese. Toni Morrison says in Beloved that to have to explain yourself to white people distorts you because you start from a position of assuming your inhumanity or lack of humanity in other people's eyes. Rather than writing a book that tries to affirm humanity, which is typical the position that minority writers are put into, the book starts from the assumption that we are human and then goes on to prove that we are also inhuman at the same time. So I just wanted to, I felt I should give a very, very short history of the Vietnam War. Just so that, we have a good understanding of what was the background of the book about. So this is just a funny map which I found online. I know it's not very accurate. But basically what is shown as French Indochina is Vietnam as we know of it now. So initially, Vietnam was a French colony till the World War II. After World War II, it was occupied by Japan. And during the World War II, it was occupied by Japan. And after which Ho Chi Minh declared Vietnam as an independent nation. And that was when the Indochina War started. Vietnam had the support of China and Soviet Union, while America and Britain backed France. Slowly, what happened was the upper half became a communist government and the lower half had US puppet government set up. So control the spread of communism. That is what US claimed, that they wanted to control the spread of communism. So they put these South Vietnamese peasants were put into hamlets. And this was a plan which backfired for them. I mainly wanted to mention this word, the hamlets, because this is the background of the movie which we see in the story. So the name of the movie for which the narrator is a script consultant is called as The Hamlet. So it's based on this. So they were put into these hamlets and this plan backfired. And in 1963, South Vietnamese army captured the power as many atrocities were being committed by the South Vietnamese government again upon the Buddhist. So, these was more like the religious atrocities which were being done by Catholics on the Buddhists, and to fight against it, the South Vietnamese army captured the power. Then came the Gulf of Tonkin incident. We'll once again be seeing about this incident in recent news, but to just talk about it more. So the Gulf of Tonkin incident is when a US ship is attacked near the North Vietnam waters on August 2nd, 1964. Another attack supposedly happened after 2 days, which triggered USA to send troops to Vietnam. So they had this issue with compulsory conscription and all these things which happened. So basically what happens when the South Vietnam army takes over the control, USA did not immediately intervene. However, after this Gulf of Tonkin incident, they felt they had the right to intervene because their ship has been attacked. And they started bombing, and there was a lot of, counter bombing and fighting which was happening. After which happened the incident called as Tet Offensive, where there was a sudden attack upon South Vietnam by about 85,000 Viet Cong soldiers in 100 different cities, including the US Embassy in Saigon. And this blasted the morale of the American soldiers. And after this, Nixon comes to power and the bombing continues. And now the Americans no longer want to be a part of this war. So there's a massive protest in US. And 4 students are killed by the military, which again leads to some more massive protests. And in 1971, the Pentagon Papers are released. So basically, these papers said that the government had systematically misled the public and Congress about the Vietnam War's progress and scope. Now, this obviously the Pentagon Papers led to unleash another, huge protests in US. And in 73, the US troops leave. In 1975, North Vietnam captures South Vietnam, and especially in 75, they capture Saigon. So this is what we see the start of the Sympathizer as. So the Vietnam was, very hard hit by the war and the withdrawal of US support. which led to the Vietnamese boat people, as we see about the boat people in the book, which is why I wanted to talk about that too. So basically, the Vietnamese boat people were refugees who fled Vietnam by sea after the fall of Saigon in 1975. But it was not only after the fall of 1975. This continued. They were escaping the communist regime's persecution, the economic hardships, the re-education camps, and etc. In fact, they said that the boat people continued even till the 1990s, in fact. So they faced very dangerous journeys on overcrowded and often unseaworthy boats. Many perished from starvation, storms, or pirate attacks. Those who survived were eventually resettled in countries like the United States, Canada, Australia, and others, where they built new lives despite the challenges. Recent developments about the Vietnam War, I'm talking about developments in the last, I think this is about 2 to 3 years, is that basically the Gulf of Tonkin incident is what triggered the war, right? The US ship was attacked. But recent investigations show that the second attack, which was claimed to have happened and for which the US troops were sent, is actually false. The National Security Agency, an agency of the US Defense Department, had deliberately skewed intelligence to create the impression that an attack had been carried out. Declassified documents and historical research have shown that intelligence was misinterpreted or exaggerated, and top US officials were aware of the dubious nature of the evidence, but still decided to use this event which supposedly happened to justify military action. So I think that is my 5-minute run through of the history. Before we see a little bit about the themes and other things in this, let me just stop share so that you can share anything you would like.
The background which we gave, I was not aware. There are so many things actually. For the Vietnam, the war, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, Saigon, and this role of Nixon, and rather dubious role of his NSA and other stuff.
I
But
hope
what
it
I was,
wasn't too
no, that was
textbooky.
required. Because
Yeah.
when we were reading a book, even after having read this book, I was thinking about Vietnam, we know very little as a matter. At least. So we have to find out a book actually that speaks in detail about Vietnam, North Vietnam, South Vietnam actually, why they are in such a shape now. And what warranted this US interference in their internal affairs. That led to a lot of so I was thinking, which would be better after the discussion is over to know more about Vietnam? Or for that matter, let us limit ourselves to South Vietnam. North Vietnam is we don't have any access to it. It is militarily ruled, and I was thinking of that. Actually. It's good, but the next question comes: American interference. What
Shamal
caused
Raoji,
American?
but now, now you're not talking about the military ruled now, right?
Now I'm not doing. I was speaking of historical reason. Actually,
Yeah, yeah.
what made Russia and
Because we
America
visited
became?
Hanoi. We visited
Acha,
Hanoi, and it was beautiful. It was a wonderful experience. We especially
uh,
visited because my son is a very big history buff. In fact, this short history of Vietnam, I was able to do this with his help only.
very nice, very nice. Nice to
Yeah.
know.
So we visited all the museums, and it was really good, very nice to be there.
So there is somewhere a word called napalm.
Yes. So that
And
was one of the bombs which was developed.
exactly. Even this law, finally, you will find actually that man gets disfigured. Who tortures the narrator, sympathizer.
Yeah, it's
So
sad.
he covers it up. It is sad. Actually. We have to read some more about Vietnam itself. Because when we went to my son in America, I visited Vietnamese sort of food
Mm.
joint is there actually. We visited vegetarian food we took. That was different actually. People were different. Serving was all those things. Culture was different.
I'm a huge fan of the pho, their soup.
For that is there. I asked him, my son, I asked, what is this? Oh, he said it is like a cheese actually. Small slices they were cut. In a bowl they have put
Yeah,
along
yeah,
with the vegetable steam boiled. That was
yeah.
tasting good actually. The
Yeah.
pho, very correct. I tasted pho.
Oh,
And that also it is there. He is in Folsom, no? For some time
mm,
he was in San Diego. Even the place where it is Sancho is there. He is refers, writer, it is come in your site. We
mm.
visited that place also. Had I known that actually they had a grocery shop, the writer, I would have visited them. That is okay.
Uh, I, I, I don't know. Maybe they must be still having it only. I don't know.
They will be having still because it's
Yeah, yeah.
parental.
Mm.
It should be there. The
But he
preposition.
and his brother have really accomplished a lot of things, in fact, very well. Even
And
now,
that,
he's working on a major, academic book. So I've
okay.
seen a little bit about that also.
Hmm.
So it's really, both of them have achieved a lot of things.
That is what I find. Sometimes if you look at life, the more you suffer, the better your
Hmm.
results are. More
Yeah.
suffering when you are hard pressed actually. The result that
Hmm.
comes out is really brilliant. That's what I heard one of the teachers was saying. If you hard press what I call a string actually, when you leave it, it goes fast like anything. The
Hmm.
harder you press, the higher you go. Perhaps that also works here. They have
Hmm.
passed through a lot of material, lot of problems. So they are both people. They come, they
True.
get settled, they become graduates. They thesis, they write doctors, they become. So that's
Yeah.
so second book is also. I have not seen about non-fiction books of the writer user.
Oh,
Uh,
there are three different non-fiction books which he's written. So, in fact, one of the non-fiction book is The Man with Two Faces.
non-fiction.
Yeah, The
Okay.
Man with Two Faces. I was just thinking, oh, it's so related to this one, The Sympathizer, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so the concept is the same thing, right?
It is a sequel to
No, no,
Sympathizer.
no.
It is independent.
There is a different one. I think The Committed or something, which is the
Okay.
sequel to Sympathizer, where
Hmm.
actually this person, the narrator, ends up in France.
Okay.
So now he's leaving, right? He's leaving the country. That's how the book ends, where he's leaving the country.
Yeah.
And
He
I
leaves.
think he ends
He
up in
leaves.
France. So what he does in
Okay.
France is the second book, the sequel to this. But non-fiction book, there is one which is The Man with Two Faces, which I think might
Two
be a
faces.
non-fictional analysis of whatever he talks about in this book, probably.
Okay. While reading this book and enjoying it, did you find any hurdle? It is unless and until you know more of history of a particular place or particular community, we can't enjoy such books. That's what I felt.
Correct.
It's not like a plain story, love, that type of a thing,
Mm,
war and that. It's no, it leans more on history.
mm,
Unless you understand or a fair idea of the historical background, it is difficult to enjoy such books. That's what I found.
true, true.
Why they quarrel? Why America into it? What is it? You just cannot take it because it is life. Man is a sympathizer. He works as a spy. He accepts it. Opening sentence itself says, I am a spy.
Mm,
So to whom is he declaring? That leads to I am a spy, a sleeper, a spook, a man of two faces. This is the opening sentence. To me, he is declaring. After some time only we will know then that he is declaring it, accepting it as an admission of his thing. He is forced to admit by his own close friend, that man. Language is good. That we have to vote for 100. Language is good.
language is excellent, actually. The
Ah,
metaphors and the way he's thinking. One or
he
two I had
presents it.
taken up and I had put it in the
Ah,
quotes, some of the sentences.
yes, yes, yes. Even when this, what is that called? A lot of quotations are there. And language is good.
I also I'll now talk about the themes. I liked
Hmm,
the entire theme of the book also. How
hmm,
he is
hmm.
actually there as a spy, but how he feels sympathetic towards the other side too. And which is somewhat, I feel, very true in any case, right? In any war, anywhere. If as a war, when you see as a nation, maybe you have a standing. But when you go to an individual and you see an individual person, it is quite sad. You do feel sympathetic
Definitely.
with whichever side it
Definitely.
is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you become the sympathizer. You sympathize with this sympathizer.
Yeah,
So
correct.
much suffering undergoes, so much actually he does for he discharges both the roles. He acts an assistant to me. There he does so many things. He when he is asked, he gives to two people without any reason. He suffers for that. He never accepts himself when he has killed that what is that major. He shoots major at that Tony at the
Hmm.
behest of this his boss. He suffers for that, for having killed it. And
Yeah,
another thing also, he doesn't, he is not an American. He has come from outside. He's a migrant or whatever you call. There is this, there is also so much suffering. One who goes to America as a migrant, they are mistreated. So overall, and as you just said in the opening study, he did lot despite all these problems, pressures, and other things. He has worked it out.
yeah. Okay.
So more of history is to be known about Viet. Then you will
Yes.
see better.
They are very, what we found was they are very, they've done actually immensely sacrificed a lot,
Yes.
and worked very hard for what they have right now. And they are very proud of where they are now, very proud of their
Naturally,
country
because
and their
it is
achievements
hard.
against
Exactly
US.
correct. It is
So,
hard and it has not
mm,
come easy. Anything that
yeah,
has not come easily, hard and you will definitely have a sense of pride. I
yeah,
achieved this. I did this. There
yeah.
is your self worth increases multifold when you achieve things like that. That's what
Correct.
I think.
And also something which I saw, which maybe doesn't directly relate to the book, but something which we saw in Vietnam and about which I was just reading about also when I was seeing Vietnam's history is that historically also Vietnam had a very, it treated men and women very equal.
So,
So the women had a very strong and good position in society historically
right.
also.
Okay.
So there was this a lot of invasion from China into the country, which they have always had. So there was one of the things incidents which was written was one of the invasions which happened. Two men are getting killed. So the
Ah,
wives of these two men, in fact, they join together and they pick up arms and they fight against the
invaders.
Chinese leaders
Those attackers.
at that time. This is I'm talking about long time back in the history of Vietnam. And
Hmm.
initially, they don't even take them seriously because China didn't have that same kind of policy towards women like what
No,
Vietnam had. But
no.
very soon, they started fighting and throwing back the Chinese at so many different places. And they quickly gathered an army of more than 80,000 people,
That's right. To fight back Chinese
fight back the Chinese, and headed by these two women,
women,
uh,
women commanders.
women commandos. And
That's what
very
I said.
interesting to read. And we saw that even when we went to Hanoi this time, you know,
That's right.
women were very
Yeah,
confident and, we could feel a difference in the society we felt.
exactly, exactly. I was just thinking actually, each nation has its own what is
Yeah.
called character.
Mm,
Each nation. For that matter, men and women who pursue the nation, they have their own character, and it is
correct.
not just it doesn't come overnight. It
Mm,
is built up over a period of time. Their
mm,
hardships, their successes, their failures, all those things are mold or chisel them into a personality. That is, another personality is different from one country to the other.
correct.
So I was thinking what actually the South Vietnamese character is, base character, basic character. Are they achievers or are they sufferers? Are they friendless? I was thinking, are they really politically where they have made it? It's a small, not Vietnam we need not think about because everything is black hole. In this case, actually, culturally, who are the other writers who have brought out, who stayed back in their own country and they wrote books about their country, their experiences. This man is an immigrant writer. He
Correct.
left the country and then started writing. Similarly, it is elder brother whose stays and still continue to remain in the country they brought out. Things will be different before war, post war, after so much turmoil and other things. I was thinking that because this takes a single aspect actually, this book. and
Correct.
wonderfully gets cited. He is a spy, works for communists, but he again gets actually.
Correct. Okay, I'll share the screen and
Please,
we'll continue.
please, ma'am.
So, one of the main themes of the book is loyalty versus duplicity. So, for the narrator, North Vietnam is his motherland. But South Vietnam becomes the fatherland of opportunity. That is where he becomes a captain. That is where his personal ambitions and dreams are met. Claude secures the narrator a place at his alma mater, Occidental College. While the general, like the narrator, speaks, precise, formal English, which is looked upon by the narrator. So both of these men serve as surrogate father figures to the narrator. And all these create opportunities for him, and he learns more about himself than what he learned from his own father. And another thing which shows that he doesn't really belong to one place, or he is, he's unclear of who he is when we see that he remains nameless. There's no clear sense of identity for him outside of these connections. The narrator's bled oath with man, who represents the communist Viet Cong, and with Bon, who represents South Vietnam's muddled democracy, exemplifies the country's civil war also. The narrator doesn't declare full loyalty either to Bon or Man, because both men are a part of him. The narrator's blood is literally and figuratively mingled with both Man and Bon, with both North and South Vietnam. So, though the narrator's positions as both a South Vietnamese army captain and a Viet Cong spy are duplicitous, they're also indicative of his commitments both to Western civilization and to communist ideology. He's loyal to both value systems because they both represent who he is. Nguyen observes how Americans who lost the Vietnam War still control the narrative of the war, refashioning themselves as heroes and the Vietnamese as hapless victims waiting to be rescued. These images, perpetuated through film and often validated in academia, misrepresent the Vietnamese community while using, some of its members to tell a very distorted narrative. Nguyen demonstrates how the community has not only been undermined by colonialism and war, but also by its inability to tell its own stories. So, in the story, the narrator is a script consultant for the movie called The Hamlet, which is a film about the Vietnam War. And it does not have even a single Vietnamese actor in the main cast. Now, on one hand, the narrator is hired because the director feels that authenticity is important. On the other hand, the director says authenticity doesn't beat the imagination and that the story still comes first. So this statement indicates that the facts about Vietnam are less important than what white audiences want to think and the stories that they want to be told. So the auteur also, we don't know his name. So the auteur's identity as a white man makes American audiences trust him more to tell the story because they know that he will depict what they want to see. So something else about, apart from the, Asian identity in the United States, another theme which has been explored in the book is the moral ambivalence. So the nameless narrator's duplicity in his relationships fosters a sense of moral ambivalence. His commitments to both communism and Western democracy, to both North and South Vietnam, reinforce the notion that he belongs to everyone and no one. He is nameless, known only by his titles as captain and comrade, because his true identity exists in the space between these labels. There's always a constant duality. So that is, he's shown the pickled baby. Do you remember the pickled baby scenes, Shamal Raoji?
Two heads actually at the last
Yeah, towards
chapter
the end.
somewhere is,
Yeah,
and he shows it actually that
correct.
interrogator.
Yeah.
I remember. I remember. I
So
was
again,
thinking,
the
what's the
pickled baby
message?
also has two faces, and one
Ah,
sees east, one sees west, you know, or you can
yes,
keep it at one sees a different direction. So two different opposing
exactly. I
directions
was
they
just
see.
thinking, what is the message actually the writer wants to communicate by showing
Yeah.
that at end with it?
So he wants to show that duality,
Okay.
and he also wants to show that having that duality only makes you monstrous in some ways,
Ah,
which
ah,
is what
ah.
comes in the second Stein,
Yes,
the sentence which
you
I've
are
quoted here.
well.
Your destiny is being a bastard, while your talent, as you say, is seeing from two sides. You would be better off if you only saw things from one side. The only cure for being a bastard is to take a side.
Correct, correct. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I
This
felt this
clarifies.
is so true in so many different things, even with maybe politics in today's world. So either you
Yes,
are this, either you're with us or against us. There's no
yes.
no
In
questioning or
between.
no other mid path which is there.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Nguyen suggests that morality and purpose must be self-determined, particularly in the case of someone who has never felt a sense of belonging. The narrator cannot follow in Bond's faithful obedience to the general because he has never identified completely with the South Vietnamese army, and he cannot agree to Claude's concept of original sin because he's an atheist communist whose Eastern heritage complicates his Catholicism. So the narrator chooses moral ambivalence due to his inability to take any one side in an argument. I have some quotes over here. So she was a poor person. I was her poor child. And no one asks
No,
poor
no.
people if they want war.
Yes,
Nothing, the general muttered, is ever so expensive as what is offered for free. Whatever people say about the general today, I can only testify that he was a sincere man who believed in everything he said, even if it was a lie, which makes him not so different from most. Our country itself was cursed, bastardized, partitioned into North and South. And if it could be said of us that we chose division and death in our uncivil war, that was also only partially true. We had not chosen to be debased by the French, to be divided by them into an unholy trinity of North, Centre, and South, and to be turned over to the great powers of capitalism and communism for a further bisection, then given roles as the clashing armies of a Cold War chess match played in air conditioned rooms by white men wearing suits and lies.
very forceful statement.
Very forceful statement.
Very forceful. He brought out the two tradition of both North and South Vietnam and how actually Western powers or the European powers they may have manipulated. And it's also painful paragraph actually when he depicts. He is
Yeah,
crying for his own very touching paragraph.
true. It is always better to admire the best among our foes rather than the worst among our friends.
Yes,
If youth was not wasted, how could it be youth?
yes.
I could live without television, but not without books.
Oh, that's right. It is those sort of nonsense.
Your problem isn't that you think too much. Your problem is letting everyone know what you're thinking. So it was that we soaked ourselves in sadness and we rinsed ourselves with hope. And for all that we believed, almost every rumor we heard, almost all of us refused to believe that our nation was dead. And I thought the sentence was so well framed and
Oh,
soaked ourselves in sadness and rinsed ourselves with
what
hope.
a word.
Yeah.
And all of us refuse to believe that our nation was dead.
Yeah.
Writer also knows the status of his own country. His
Mm.
nation. Nation was dead.
Yeah. As
Isn't
Hegel
it?
said,
Full of
tragedy was not the conflict between right and wrong, but right and right. A dilemma none of us who wanted to participate in history could escape. After all, nothing was more American than wielding a gun and committing oneself to die for freedom and independence, unless it was wielding that gun to take away someone else's freedom and independence. I think that was also very well said. And I
yes.
forgot to write that sentence also, which I liked a lot. Nothing uh, is as valuable as freedom and independence, and nothing
Ah, yes.
is valuable, is more valuable or
Ah,
something than freedom and independence.
on freedom and independence, there is a quote.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
so
yes.
beautifully said. And
Yes, yes.
yeah, what am I dying for? He cried back. I'm dying because this world I'm living in isn't worth dying for. If something is worth dying for, then you've got a reason to live. This is
Exactly.
when Bond talks about going to fight, no?
Right,
And
exactly.
yeah, the narrator asks him, "What are you dying for?" So he says, "What am I dying for?"
Yes.
He cried back. What do those who struggle against power do when they seize power? What does the revolutionary do when the revolution triumphs? Why do those who call for independence and freedom take away the independence and freedom of others?
It is very true.
Yeah.
One who sits after revolution in the chair of the power, actually, he takes away the power, independence of others.
Mm. Yeah. So that's
There is
all.
one book referred to, have you read that?
Um,
Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Correct.
Robert, it's a wonderful book. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. If we have
Uh,
a small book, it's very inspiring book. I
yeah.
read some 5, 6 years back. It has finds a reference in the book.
Yes.
Finds a reference in the book. That she holds it in her hand when she speaks to the narrator.
Hi, Meghalai. Nice to see you.
After such a long time.
Yeah, after such a long time. So sorry, we just finished the presentation.
Yeah,
But
yeah, no
please,
problem.
please do stay for the discussion. Please do stay.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to actually just get to meet you guys.
Yeah.
In a long time, yeah.
Yes.
So that's why just saying a hello after you
Yeah.
come back.
I'll share the link
Back,
with
right?
you all.
You're back, right?
Yes, yes, I'm back. I'm in Bombay now. So your trip to Mumbai is due.
Yeah. Yeah, surely. Anyway, I'll just stay with the discussion. I'll just be there. Yeah.
Sure.
There was another quote.
Yes.
While pain is universal, it is also utterly private.
Yeah.
While pain is universal, it also is utterly private.
Yeah, I was reminded of a Tamil saying which we have, that only those who have the headache will know how it's like
Exactly.
something like that. I forgot the exact
Exactly.
saying. My
Right.
mother, maybe
But
she
you
will
have been able,
remember.
but you have been able to communicate the spirit of the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Pain is universal,
Correct.
but it is also private.
True. I thought some scenes were very, very well done, probably
I
because
was
he has
there,
lived through it.
exactly. I was
Yeah.
saying, just telling that this novel is an autobiographical.
Autobiographical. Yeah.
He comes also like a boatman.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
that is a very intensity and genuineness in the way he has written. That's what I thought. It's
Correct.
not just a storytelling. He will what I call express his own feelings. That's what I said. Autobiographical.
Hmm.
This book.
Correct. Lot of things, lot of little
Ah,
things
ah,
I felt was
ah. At 1 or 2 points, actually, he made a comparison between an immigrant and a local American and other things, how they look down the immigrants, these Americans. That also he well.
Yeah. The displacement, everything was brought out very nicely, very well.
I just one quote I remember. It doesn't matter how long you have been here, Mrs. Mori. Mrs. Mori said. It doesn't matter how long you have been here, Mrs. Mori said. White people will always think we are foreigners.
We are foreigners, correct.
White people will always think we are foreigners. Language also.
True. So, actually, Sanjan is also here. So he was the one who helped me prepare for the short history of Vietnamese war, and he had shared about the recent development. So in fact, it seems up to about only now recently they have started changing the US history textbooks. To reflect that that particular incident of that ship being attacked is actually false. So because only just now 2 years back it's come to light. So till then they were always telling that North Vietnam had attacked the ship, which is why the US had sent the troops, was what was mentioned in US textbooks. And now they've started mentioning that there was this false claim that North Vietnam has attacked the thing.
That was false.
So that was very, very interesting to see.
There are certain, particularly he explains regarding screen. Remember?
Yeah, yeah, correct.
He takes a whole paragraph actually, how an occasion particularly screen is made. Of course, we can feel it. It is a different thing, we can't hear it, but we can feel when he explains it.
True. Anybody would like to add anything?
And Claude says, interrogation is not punishment. Interrogation is a sign.
Correct.
Just interrogation is a sign.
But I was that interrogation which they do of him in the re-education camp felt like so harsh for I don't know.
Physically, he is put. Similarly, in that penultimate scene, actually, when he is put to torture, also something else. But that is what this Claude says. You need not physically maim or do electric and other things. You can construct only a sign. Interrogation is about the mind first, the body second. Everything.
Yeah, it's about the mind first.
Body next.
As far as I know, there is a web series also based on the book.
Is it available in Netflix?
I've not checked out at all. There was absolutely no time. But I heard that there is a mini series called The Sympathizer itself, and it's there.
Oh, okay.
Did you do you know, Meghla, if it's there on Netflix or anything?
Idea. Maybe I'll just check it out on.
Yeah, I just scrolling through, I just saw that it is there. There is a mini series, but I didn't really get to see it.
So I have to find it out.
Yeah. So the next book, Meghla, any choices, any recommendations?
I'm not the person here now to recommend like that. I mean, like you guys read a lot, yeah.
No, nothing like that. Thanks to the book club, I read at least. I picked up a lot of books which I wouldn't otherwise pick up, I feel.
That's what I feel, no? Because after joining your book club, I've even come to know of such authors. I'm like, okay, like this and all books are there, no? It's like that. Yeah.
It's very interesting to know more about them. So we were just thinking we'll pick up a little lighter read so that we can get through more books before the end of this year and reach our goal.
Yeah, I think this year it is like little lot of
Yeah,
gaps,
lot
right?
of things and lot of 3 months. There's been a 3-month gap now. We're meeting after
Yeah.
3 months. Yeah,
That's what.
I shifted
And
and
lots
then
are happening for you also, yeah.
yeah. I actually was not having any voice yesterday and today morning and all. I was thinking, how am I going to do? But I'm not canceling, come what may.
And I think you made it go well, yeah.
Yeah, yes. So,
So
okay,
yeah,
any,
maybe that
I
you can
will,
suggest, yeah.
yes, Meghale.
No, you suggest it will be nice, yeah.
Sure, sure. We'll,
Lighter reads, like you said, I'll also try to keep up,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Think of any short classic reads if you think even modern classics are okay. Anything we
Okay.
can think of, do please pass it on. And Shamal
Yeah.
Raoji, please do see if you can think of any
Sure.
small classics. And
Sure.
I'll also look at it. By tomorrow,
Yeah.
I'll send out the poll so that we can start
Yeah.
getting the book and keeping it ready and
Yeah,
so that
sure,
we
sure.
can meet September end.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining in.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.